I just saw this. I believe it was posted on Facebook. It could have been Reddit, but it was from a gentleman named Jared James. He said,
74% of realtors sold 0 homes in 2024. 2% sold 11 to 20, and only 0.14% sold 45 or more. Moral of the story? If you've worked with a realtor who did a great job and is still selling real estate, when you get ready to buy or sell again, use them. Switching agents means you have a 98% chance of working with someone who didn't even sell a house. Your original agent has defied the odds by still being around. Question mark?
Question mark. I absolutely agree with him. Listen, even if his numbers are off, they're pretty darn close. If you've got a realtor who's working for you and doing a good job, stick with them. I'm telling you, it's going to serve you well as somebody who's buying and selling homes. But moving on to another story, I want to share this graph with you because I think it's very important to kind of forecast what's going to happen in the future. Now, understand what I'm going to talk about right now. Some of you may see this or deem this as being negative news, but the truth of the matter is I think this outcome, which I believe to be inevitable, is ultimately going to be what's going to cure this industry. But I want to walk through this methodically right now so you understand where I'm coming from on it. So now here's a graph from the Federal Reserve. Now, there are 3 pronounced bumps in here going from left to right. On the left-hand side is the older bumps, and they're smaller, and they get bigger as we go forward to our current day. So you see this bump right here on the far left-hand side. This kind of double-headed bump is basically, I call it the 1979, but it's the Iran energy embargo crisis, oil crisis. And that created massive inflation. That's when we had our hostages over in Iran. It was a time where you could only get gas on certain days of the week depending what was on your license plate. I remember this as a little kid. There were lines of cars around the block of your full-service leaded gas station. I remember this. Now, at that moment in time, the Fed Chair Chief Volcker, he saw a rampant inflation going completely out of control. So he went all Volcker and he raised the Fed fund rate from 11% to 20% over a period of time that was less than 1 year, and he freaked everybody out, and they all quit spending money. This was the first economic crisis of my life. And this bump that you're looking at over here, it's the own versus renting difference in terms of cost, where the cost of owning a house was way out of whack versus what rents would cost. What happened? Well, Volcker's moved, he killed the economy with higher interest rates, and the prices of homes and everything else came down. Inflation, it went way down. And we haven't seen inflation like that since until now. And it worked. Now, the second bump, the bigger bump, is the same home price to rent ratio. Like I said, it's a little bit bigger, isn't it? It was worse. And this was the buildup of home values backed by subprime loans that all had economic blood clots, all designed to give us a national housing aneurysm to kill the economy at one precise moment, and boy, did it ever do that. Those loans gave anyone a house, and anyone came calling in droves, pushing values up, way up, too high, throwing the own-to-rent ratio even further out of whack than the 1979 oil embargo. What happened next then? Well, just like 1979, another huge and painful correction. We remember that one. Now we go to our third and sadly largest bump. Not so much of a bump, but more of a mountain, isn't it? Now this third bump would of course be our current state of affairs, or disrepair. A bump built on housing scarcity and rampant inflation. The same inflation Volcker cured during the 1979 oil embargo crisis. It's back with a vengeance. Now this one's built on COVID and drunkenly printing and spending money that we didn't have nor did we need. And with the absence of homes and the saturation of need once again, for the third time in nearly 50 years, our home price to rent ratio has gone wildly out of alignment. So the question that we have is, what's going to happen next? I think it seems inevitable. And the truth of the matter is, a massive correction brings affordability and puts every realtor and lender back to work.
Finally, in the spirit of the new administration, the new movie, and our current state of housing, did you know Woody Guthrie, friend of Bob Dylan, whose bio movie recently came out, once rented an apartment in the Beach Havens apartment complex from Fred Trump, President Donald Trump's father? Guthrie wrote the song Old Man Trump about Fred Trump's tenant policies and the difficulties of finding housing. That song came out in 1954. Who could have guessed the future?
Loan officers, if you've had enough and you're trying to find a way to get a bigger piece of a smaller pie, we have the solutions over here because we work together in a way that brokers have never done before. It's all about getting more deals. It's just that simple. Fill out the information down below and let's me and you have a personal conversation about this.
I ain't got no home, I'm just a rambling round, just a one.